Hello all, welcome to the Consistently OK podcast, a podcast where we dive into all things pop culture related from comics to films and everything in between. My name's Luke.
I'm Nick.
Join us every week for a podcast that doesn't set its bar too high or too low, but rather keeps it at a consistently OK level for your enjoyment.
You do whatever I like, whenever I like. That's it.
Yeah.
Drink beer. Do FaceTime calls.
Drink beer at 6 a.m.
Honestly, this is only my 9th beer of the day.
Hi everyone, so this is our third Star Wars podcast. We're focusing this time on the prequel trilogy, which includes The Phantom Menace, Attack of the Clones, and Revenge of the Sith. And we're going to dive into all three films throughout this podcast. We are joined by our lovely guest, Mr. Harry Hughes. Hello, Harry.
Hello, how are you?
Really good. How are you?
Quite splendid, yeah. Looking forward to some more conversation, as ever.
I like the fact that I think I've referred to Nick and I as a we twice already. So
become a we.
It's because we're just a we now. So, and how are you, Nick? I know how you are because we're always together apparently.
I'm all good. I'm just Pneumatic season 2 finished tonight, or in 10 minutes it'll have released its last chapter. So
less than 10 minutes now.
Now the count is on for me to sort of finish up season 3, which is terrifying.
No pressure.
Thanks. Hopefully it goes okay.
Excellent.
I hope it crashes and burns.
It's going to crash and burn because of you. Yeah.
Hey, don't talk about us like that, Harry.
Sorry, guys. I don't want to offend Luke, but now that you're joined at the hip, it's really hard.
Okay, so Star Wars prequel. Let's just go for the first of the three, The Phantom Menace, which I'm not very good at doing my research before these, but I think came out roughly in the year 1999.
It did.
Roughly in the year. You didn't even give a roughly. It was just like roughly this exact year. You could have given a window.
Listen, Harry, none of this shit like with Henry Cavill, okay?
Sorry.
We don't correct each other on this podcast. We just let it happen.
You come on our show and you just go for it.
Walk in here and you attack us.
I'll rate it in. I'm sorry.
Sorry, it wasn't.
Can we start again?
It wasn't roughly. It was exactly 1999.
Was it?
And I assume you two were toddlers then. I don't know.
I'm just trying to think how old I am. I was 8.
Yeah,
that's how old I was.
Yes.
Yeah.
8.
I was
okay.
8 years of age.
And do you know what? Weird. Around the time that film
to the cinema to see this,
maybe 2 years after Phantom Menace came out, I'm pretty sure is when I saw The Thing for the first time. So nice. That just gives you a scope of...
Oh yeah, we have spoken about this before. Like my mum let me watch Predator at the young age of 8.
Yeah. So, even though we were 8 years old, we were mature. We were doing...
I feel like the first... I mean, we're well off course here already, but the first horror thing I was able to watch was... which isn't even horror, was... what was it called?
Toy Story.
No, yeah, can you imagine? The first one, Sid terrified the shit out of me. No, what's the Nicole Kidman? The Others. Yeah, I remember that being the film I was granted. Like, you can watch this. You're of age now. And I shit my pants.
I don't know what. I feel like it's very similar to The Orphanage, but I don't.
No. I'm not going to spoil it because we could do a whole new podcast on how much that film terrified me.
Just do a podcast.
We need to talk about
Nicole Kidman's The Others.
Episode 35, Harry's Top Terrors.
I've watched it since. It's not scary. But I remember, literally, do you know when you're in such fear, but you're pretending that you're old enough to watch the film? Because I obviously had to prove to my parents that I was mature enough to watch scary films. I was like a Russian torture victim. I just sat there bolt stiff, obviously shitting myself, but trying not to show it.
It's like Leonora now.
It's not coming out.
Leonora will watch my daughter, 4 years old. If she watches one of the Disney films when a bad guy comes on, she says that she's not scared, but she will sit so close to me and hold my hands so tight. Is it too scary? She's like, no. But you can see the fear in her eyes. And she's asking me for a backstory of every bad guy so she can either understand where Jafar's coming from. Was he treated badly as a kid? Does he have a mama and a papa? Let's find out.
And you're there just I don't know.
I don't know. So speaking of young kids, obviously The Phantom Menace, very big on Anakin.
Yep.
Obviously turns into, if you've never seen Star Wars, he's Darth
Big
Vader.
spoiler.
Yeah.
Huge reveal.
Literally, someone
I think
listens
even the
to this
poster gives
podcast
that
as
away,
they
though.
press play.
Come on. Like the poster
Yeah,
gives
it
it away
does,
for
doesn't
Phantom. Yeah. For Phantom Menace, the main poster.
That was a good poster, by the way. I love that poster.
Yeah.
You mean the one of Anakin just stood there with his backpack on?
Yeah.
And then the shadow on the hut is Darth Vader. That's a good poster. Poster campaign, strong. Always is, to be fair, for Star Wars. Got to give them that. Despite what the films are like.
7, 8, and 9, I don't think they had great posters. We were talking about this recently.
Aren't 7, 8, 9 just basically like MCU posters?
Yeah.
Where they're all just kind of gather around.
Big montage posters.
Big montage.
Harry and I were
montage? Is that the word?
About the fact that illustrators don't do many posters anymore. And that there was a run of time when like illustrators were doing loads of posters. And I said that I think Star Wars was 7, 8, and 9 should have done illustrated posters like 4, 5, and 6. And I'm pretty sure.
I mean, it will leap here. I feel like if the posters are still illustrated, the point I was straight, I don't want to like offend all illustrators who have worked on big film. It's more like I was saying like old Western style, like the Good, Bad, and the Ugly style posters, like those kind of things. The Drew Struzan-y kind of stuff.
I'm pretty sure,
which isn't Western, but that stuff. They need to bring it back.
But wasn't 7, 8, 9? That is like Luke was saying, isn't it? Like an MCU poster where it's like
I think Paul Shipper, if I'm wrong, sorry, but I think Paul Shipper did some or something.
Okay,
or,
I wasn't sure.
Yeah, which he is an excellent illustrator, and that's allowed.
Yeah,
but yeah, you just get loads of big ensemble posters now, which I feel like would be nice to do some retro things, like take it back to the 80s, the 70s. I was going to say take it back to the 90s, and then this film came out in the 90s.
Roughly.
Yeah, roughly the 90s.
Specifically the 90s, roughly 1999.
The last point in the 90s.
Yeah.
I'm glad that we covered posters. That was my top point to cover in this whole podcast.
We basically just circled around the topic we've chosen and just gone horror films. Posters. Anyway, we need to bring this back.
Anyway, Phantom Menace. Tell me, I'll tell you my thoughts on Phantom Menace. So I didn't see it at the cinema. I don't know how old I was. Probably you two were 8, so I would have been older.
Roughly 9.
What's our difference? I always forget. Was it 5 years?
You're like 2 years? Oh no, it's more? I thought it was only a couple of years. Oh no, actually you definitely weren't in school when we were, so well you were, but you were
I was at the tail end of school when you two started school, wouldn't I? So
what was the difference between you and my brother's year? Was it, I think you were like
1 year.
Okay, so then there's 5 years between us.
5
years.
You were right. I mean, we could say our age on this podcast. I don't think anyone's gonna judge us. But I'm 21.
And the maths in my brain, I was like, I'm 16.
Okay, yeah, no, I didn't see it at the cinema, so I didn't. It wasn't. I wasn't
even born.
I wasn't alive.
No, you were. You were.
I was,
born,
yeah.
Just, yeah.
So I didn't see it at the cinema. A lot of my friends did go and see it, but like I said in the previous podcast, Star Wars was not on my top want list. I wasn't, when the Phantom Menace was announced, I wasn't like, oh my god, I can't wait to see it. So I didn't go and see it. The only thing that I think I was tempted by was Darth Maul. That was the only thing, because he had the double lightsaber thing going on, which is awesome.
Mm-hmm.
And
it's fair to say that he is the best thing about the Phantom Menace.
He is the best thing, but I didn't see it till just before Attack of the Clones came out, because I went to the cinema to see that because all of my friends were going again, and I was just like, oh man, like, and that was at the point where Stratford Picture House, they had like a cinema club going on. Ooh. So you go and see a film once a week and all that stuff. So yeah, I didn't see it at the cinema, but when I did watch it, I thought, I'm glad I didn't see it at the cinema. Because
really, oh sorry, yes, you didn't like it.
I didn't like the film necessarily. There are bits of it that I like. Darth Maul, I like the end.
You like the best.
I like Jar Jar. Yeah, I actually read today that George Lucas joked that the second film he was going to call was something like The Adventures of Jar Jar or something. He didn't have a name for the film until the script was finished, so he just kept telling everyone it was like, I don't know, The Adventures of Jar Jar or something to wind people up. Poor Jar Jar.
That's going to be a Disney Plus show, surely.
It should be, shouldn't
I
it?
feel like eventually something's going to happen with Jar Jar. It's very. The thing is, right? I actually remember watching it and finding Jar Jar really funny and liking it. And I was 8. I was 8 years old. Remember that? I was 8.
This was recently.
Yeah, I was 23. I loved it. I was 8, so this allowed. But then I remember, as I grew older, I realised how wrong I was. Basically.
I remember having this. I remember going to. It must have been like McDonald's or something, and you got these free Jar Jar toys. I don't think I got a Happy Meal specifically because I was a teenager.
Because you got Jar Jar. It was a sad meal.
I had a Jar Jar and I had like a really sticky tongue.
Yep.
And I remember thinking, I was like, what the fuck is this? Because I hadn't seen the film. So I was like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah.
And it's like you could like smack it against the wall and the tongue would stick, and then it got like then like it was funny for like 2 seconds, and then you like threw it on some stones and all the gravel came off. Like
it's a powerful tongue.
Fucking nightmare. But I didn't enjoy it. It does have the best line out of all the Star Wars film, which me and my older brother love, which is Anakin Skywalker. He's sitting in a bar as a kid, and then someone, I can't remember what he says now, but it's not necessarily a line, but Anakin just goes, woohoo!
When?
It's so stupid. It's like they say they're going to go somewhere, and Anakin Skywalker, it's just really badly edited, but he just woohoos. Like, it's like they're going to go to that. They're going to go to their death or something. Just it's like woohoo or this yippee, and it just tickled me and my older brother when we first saw it, and still to this day, just him jumping off that bar, still saying woohoo is perfect. Anyway, regardless, that's the best bit in that film. I don't even remember what the line is, but it's still the best bit.
I can't remember it either.
I just couldn't get on board with it. It was, for me, it was just a mess. But I think, strangely for me, it's because I wasn't so big in Star Wars then. I don't know if I'd seen everything else around it more. Like, I think I'd seen the original trilogy. I think I must have seen it by then. But like I said, I didn't fall in love with that more until I was at university. Yep. So maybe that's why I didn't think, oh, great, this is amazing. And I didn't enjoy Attack of the Clones either that much. So I saw that, and I saw Attack of the Clones, and I still wasn't that sold on the whole Star Wars thing, really. So you two will have to tell me what you thought of the Phantom Menace, because you both were Star Wars fans when you first saw it, which I think we've come to the conclusion that you didn't see at the cinema, or did you see it at the cinema?
Phantom Menace, I definitely saw at the cinema. Just because my family are Star Wars nuts. So I definitely saw that. And I remember we went on holiday, I think the year it came out as well. And I remember taking loads of the Star Wars figures with me. Like I had Anakin's ship and loads of shit. That must have been awful for luggage prices as well, now thinking about it. Just suitcases full of Star Wars toys. Just
don't appreciate that. I remember taking shitloads of toys with me as well. Like all my wrestling figures. Like if I don't take 30 wrestlers, Mum, I can't play Royal Rumble.
Pay for the extra luggage. But so I definitely remember seeing it. And I think at the time, I enjoyed it. Again, I think because I was a young age and it is very much targeted towards a younger age. I definitely enjoyed it. And then much like Harry, as I got older, I was like, oh no, it's actually really poor. And then I slowly come to kind of go, like I watched it recently, maybe in the last like 3 months, and the majority of the film is poor, but the Duel of the Fates scene is still like the second or third best Star Wars fight. Probably
for
the best
sure.
Music, it's just so well done, and
I think it is the best theme for any Star Wars fight. It's huge. It's so good. And like I've seen people who have made like compilations of all the Star Wars like lightsaber fights, and they always choose that theme to like have on the back of the compilation because it's the best one. It's so good. And if you put it with any of the duels in any of the films, it's like makes it better. I've seen someone did the Anakin versus Obi-Wan from Revenge of the Sith, and they put the Duel of the Fates thing on. It's like it is just
although Battle of the Heroes, which plays during their fight, that like
huge,
that's also mega. That's my.
I feel like they should have just almost remixed in a little bit of Duel of the Fates. Do you know what I mean? Just like a one little like would have been.
I think there is
enough
in the film. Is there? I'm pretty sure in the film. I think there's like a hint of it. I could be wrong on this, but when I watched it recently, I'm pretty sure I heard like a hit of it.
Yeah, you might be right. To be fair, it's like rude not to, isn't it? It's that good. I do remember. I still had the same feeling. I think when you obviously when Darth Maul shows up and he has the double bladed lightsaber, which was like huge at the time, and they've tried to do it just by like giving people more lightsabers like General Grievous or having Kylo Ren's lightsaber. It's pretty cool, but no one's managed to top the double-ended reveal, have they? Really, it's the ultimate.
Do you remember that George Lucas trailer for Star Wars? Like episode 7,
the modded one.
Somebody made like a modded episode 7 trailer, which was like the George Lucas version of Force Awakens, and it's obscene. Everything's like really just over the top.
They play on how with the originals, when they were remastered, George Lucas sort of layered in loads of extra effects. So there's like more TIE fighters and more aliens in some of the scenes, and the trailer basically just just like photoshopped in more content.
This. I feel like I've seen this. Yeah.
It's so good. So instead of there being like 2 TIE fighters chasing the Millennium Falcon, there's like 100.
It's insane.
It's so good. And then like the lightsaber thing at the end, because they obviously show off like Kylo Ren's lightsaber, where it's like one thing ignites and the side ones come out. In the normal trailer, like cool, and then this George Lucas like mod, it's like one blade comes out, 2 other blades come out, and then it's like 2 more blades come out. He's got like this like 40 bladed lightsaber thing.
It's ridiculous.
It's absolutely nuts. But yeah, it kind of semi ruined the hype for Force Awakens a little bit, because I was I couldn't watch although I was excited for it, I couldn't watch the trailers without thinking of the George Lucas edit.
Yeah,
it just killed me.
Yeah, but that all came from the prequels as well. Like all of that trailer basically came from what he did with the prequels, because it was like the prequels were like everything turned up to 11. It was just how
wrapped up.
Yeah, and I think a
just
lot of
that amount of CGI as well.
Yeah, and to bring it back to the Phantom Menace, when I watched it back, in my head I was like, there's bits that I've blocked out. Like I blocked out the whole underwater sequence.
Yeah.
Forgotten all about that. I was like, oh my god, this is really cool.
One credit to Phantom Menace though, which I only realised through watching the special features of The Mandalorian, is that Phantom Menace is the Star Wars film that uses the most miniature models out of any of the Star Wars films.
Oh yeah, didn't they build the? Was it the
pod racing thing? Yeah, the pod racing arena is a miniature, and all the pod racers, loads of the ships. It literally uses more miniatures than any other Star Wars film, which is crazy because I still rewatch. You can rewatch the pod racing, and they do look great. It's the CGI holds out on those because you're like, damn, that looks really good. But it's obviously because it's miniatures, and it'll never look shit because they're actually there. But
they must have dropped that style of shooting for Attack of the Clones, because Attack of the Clones is really, really, really CGI filled, isn't
it? They just, I think, ramp the CGI up more. I think because it's like they're saying those things about The Mandalorian. They say George Lucas basically pioneered a load of technology. So I think anything he did like 110%. So like with the originals and things like that. And then in the prequels, he's obviously now got hold of CGI and he just like hammers it.
Went with it.
Yeah,
I think that's what actually put me on. We would talk about Attack of the Clones, but that's definitely, from what I remember with Phantom Menace to Attack of the Clones, the CGI was completely amped up, like you said, and I think that put me off Attack of the Clones maybe more so, because it just
well, in Phantom Menace they had a practical Yoda, didn't they? It was a puppet.
Yeah, they did,
originally.
Yeah,
and that looked bad actually. I remember not liking that puppet, which is weird because I really love the original Yoda puppet, like from Empire and all the rest of it. It looks great, but something about that young Yoda they made was weird, and I actually kind of preferred it when they flipped it to a CGI one because it looked more like Yoda.
They had to flip it to a CGI because of the fight scene at the end of Attack of Clones, didn't they? They probably had to make
Imagine doing that with a puppet.
I should probably
just be like the Muppet.
Some guy just going fucking nuts
with his hands inside, just like Punch and Judy.
Yeah,
that'd be amazing.
Yeah, so the CGI in the trilogy, I definitely think lets it down. Like I said, when I was watching Phantom Menace, I'd forgotten just how much of it there was, and B, how bad it looks.
Bad.
Attack of the Clones for me is probably the worst of the three. In the like Phantom Menace, I think has the redeeming feature of Duel of the Fates and that fight scene, and Liam Neeson. But
you mean Attack of the Clones is the worst out of the trilogy, or the worst CGI in the trilogy?
Worst CGI, but also the worst film of the trilogy.
Yeah.
Ooh.
Okay.
Yeah.
Scathing.
Yeah. Revenge of the Sith, I think, is bloody amazing. When we got onto that, I have a fair bit to say. But yeah, Attack of the Clones, just when we watched it back recently, it just doesn't grab me at all. Like, I really struggle with it. I think Ewan McGregor's acting is good in it, but past that, I sort of struggle. And I think a lot of the CG is a big reason for it. I think it is sort of let down by just. It would be a great game if it was a video game. I think I'd love it, but watching
Just
it,
have some little bits. Attack of the Clones has some bits in it that I think
the redeeming things, which like I found, were always been a massive Boba Fett fan, and that his arcs are pretty much a letdown. So when they brought Django into it, I was absolutely hyped for that. I was like, yes, we actually get to see Django do some cool thing, which is it's kind of not the same as seeing Boba Fett in action, but you were like, this is as close as we'll ever get. Little did we know Mandalorian.
That's one of the best bits about Attack of the Clones.
The bounty hunter side arc, yeah, that's cool, and like it does bring Boba into it. And I did like how they made Boba a clone. A lot of people were sort of weirded out by that, but I was like, no, that makes perfect sense. If they're saying he's the best bounty hunter, surely make him a clone of the best bounty hunter, so they're the same person. But no, I think I sort of agree with Nick, but sort of disagree with Nick. The CGI does let it down, and it doesn't hold out well. Like it's going to get progressively worse as CGI gets better. But I don't actually dislike the film. The only thing I majorly dislike about it is the romance between Anakin and Padme, because it is jarring. Like it feels like they've gone from him being a kid and fancying her, and it's just never going to happen, to him now being like hunkier and like 20, and then she's like, yeah, sweet, and it's like it's just really hard. Like the dialogue about the sand and things like that, it's just like, oh no. And then like where they are like rolling about in the field, and it just feels too much. I feel like it didn't feel like natural romance. It felt like she's just suddenly decided, you know what, I'm going to fuck this kid, and it's like they suddenly just like click.
I would love to
roll around as well. Say again.
I would love to roll around with Natalie Portman.
I'd love to roll around with those big alien cow things, but Natalie Portman's close second. But it just didn't do it for me. I still watch it now, like laugh at the things that are supposed to be endearing. Don't get me.
But I wonder if the dialogue's a bit off, because the dialogue must be off because George Lucas said he did. I don't know if he rushed the script, but he didn't. I don't think he quite knew where he was going with it until this is what I read. I know I say I read a lot of stuff, and it's not always accurate from the sources that I'm reading it from, but from what I read today is that he wrote it so close to when the film was supposed to start shooting that some of the actors still didn't know what they were going to be doing in parts of the films. And
it's not a good recipe, is it?
Maybe he's just like, oh yeah, a bit more romance here. And, la 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 la. So
I will give you that Tamara Morrison is great in Attack of the Clones. Actually, I'll give you that as like
he is a badass, isn't he? Like,
a good
certified.
Point. The part of his story that I don't like is the stuff on Kamino. Like, I think that his fight with Obi-Wan's cool.
Yeah,
but his interaction with Obi-Wan and also the kid that plays Boba Fett annoy me.
Yeah.
The kid,
I know what you mean.
I think is.
I have a thing with kid actors, though. Like that sounded awful. Wait, let me retract that. I struggle with child actors, not because I don't think children can act, because there are performances by young actors that are great.
Stranger Things.
I think, yeah, exactly. Like, and plenty of others, like DiCaprio and Christian Bale when they were younger in films. But like, yeah, sometimes child actors just it's wooden. And I feel like the kid who plays Boba suffers a bit from that. Like, it doesn't like it's just a bit jarring. Yeah. But no, I think a lot of the stuff with Tamara Morrison as Jango Fett is great, and I like the whole seedy underworld thing, and you're learning about like how the Sith are scheming. But yeah, I like the plot of the film. I just don't necessarily like a lot of the way it was presented. That's probably how I'd encompass Attack of the Clones.
That's probably fair.
I think you could have the same plot, right, exactly as it is, with everything that's in there happen, but just presented better. It would actually be all right. Like if the love arc was a bit more convincing, if the certain things weren't quite so jarring, if the CGI wasn't so heavy, and it was led by a better balance of practical and CGI, I think the film would actually be fine. Because I love the idea of like an alien fight pit, like the Geonosian fight pit with like the gladiator style thing, where it's like the three of them. I mean, they're not really gladiators; they're just tied to posts, but they fight like those cool aliens. Like all about that. Big fan. And then like the clone army's a great concept, and like the droids and stuff. I just think it's the way it's presented hasn't stood the test of time. And I because with that, when I remember watching it the first time and thinking it was phenomenal. But that's again, I would have been, don't know what the difference is when they came out a couple of years. So it would have still been like 10.
I think Attack of the Clones was 2001 or 2000.
So like 11. Yeah. So still pretty cool with it. But as I've got older, I don't hate it. I just think the presentation's fallen away.
I think you're probably right there in the sense that I think story-wise, it probably is an interesting story. Like if I read it or whatever, I probably would enjoy the story more. But I think it's probably the execution on it that I think is more on it. And I think also because, again, going back to the score, Phantom Menace has Duel of the Fates and Revenge of the Sith has Battle of the Heroes. There isn't really like one score in Attack of the Clones that's like a kick-ass kind of, this is thematically the film. And I kind of I wonder whether that's also like part of it is that the execution on it again is it doesn't have those kind of like hard-hitting moments.
Yeah.
Because of it. But
I think another thing that didn't addle my brain a bit was like having a young, cocky Anakin.
Oh, yeah.
I didn't find him likable. I know he's probably supposed to be presented that way, like he is the chosen one, and he's got like a bit of a Harry Potter complex thing going on. But like, I found him like I like to like the people that the story's about, and like I love Obi-Wan, but I'm always been more of a villains guy anyway, so I was rooting for the bad guys. But like I think it helps when I'm watching a film if it's got a character who I can sort of sympathise with, and I didn't really get it with Anakin. I just Anakin, if he died in the pit, I'd have been like, man.
Yeah, fine. He was better in Revenge of the Sith, wasn't he? That his portrayal of Anakin.
Yeah, much better. I know it's like it might just be the presentation that he's supposed to be young and cocky, and then he's obviously a kid in Phantom Menace, and then Hayden Christensen's obviously older. It gets older between then and Revenge of the Sith. Did I say Revenge of the Sith twice? Attack of the Clones, Revenge of the Sith, whatever. Yeah, I just found him irritating, and he gets stroppy and angry, which yet again is supposed to be part of his character. But like, I wasn't very sympathetic.
Yeah, I think that's the thing. Definitely with his acting, like I find his acting in Revenge of the Sith is much better, and I don't know if it's because the writing is much better, like because they know where they're going with this character at that point. Like Attack of the Clones sort of feels like they're putting in the one big moment for him, which is the losing of his mother, and then past that it is that awkward love kind of thing and his relationship with Obi-Wan. But then when you get into Revenge, he is like a different character almost, in that he's less of that kind of like whingy thing, and there's still elements of it which is probably to be expected, but I think on a whole, when you get into Revenge, his relationships with everybody is a little bit different, and I think his acting through that is better.
Yeah,
but I just think Attack of the Clones does struggle with its execution. I think you're right there that maybe I'm overly harsh on it in terms of like the story is actually good, but the execution.
I sort the things I pick apart about it are purely visual, and there's not a part where I think, God, that was an awful idea, because it's kind of I could go through the plot written down like you said, and I don't think I'd be going, don't bother with that. It's just sort of the presentation of it more so than the foundation.
I agree with you. I concur. You've turned me around on it. There you go.
Well, you're welcome.
Yeah. Moving, Luke, you got anything to add on Attack of the Clones?
No, I just didn't think it was very good.
Amazing.
Nice. All I can think about is the fight pit, this pit scene with the gladiator bit and everything, just thinking how bad. In my brain, it's forever like in there. I don't know what the word is there. It's got little Norwegian conversations in my head too much to structure English sentences. Sometimes it's difficult, even before I moved to Norway. But Samuel Jackson, there's so much bad CGI around that scene when all the Jedi appear, and they bending off. It's just like, oh my god, it's so bad.
If Samuel Jackson had said "motherfucker," would that have made it better for you?
Oh yeah, I would have made it
hugely.
Clone Wars, motherfucker.
Well, there is a lot going on in that sequence, isn't there? I feel like it's like that George Lucas trailer. There's like a million different moving elements in that scene, like CGI, like everything.
Imagine shooting it in front of a green screen, and I'd be like, "So what's going on here, then, George?" George's like, "There's gonna be shitloads of stuff behind you, but where am I facing? Face that way, and pretend. Just wave your hands or shove a lightsaber in there."
Well, there's such volume to it, isn't there? Like depth to all the scenes. But in CGI, you just have like the floor would be there with like markers where people need to be, and then everything else would have been blue or green, presumably. So that I'd hate that. I mean, I'm not an actor, but I feel like if I was, I'd be there like, oh man, I just can't immerse myself. I suppose that's a skill of an actor. Maybe.
I mean, they've changed it now. But obviously, we spoke about The Mandalorian with the screens, didn't we? That they have the rotating screens.
Yeah, the volume.
With the MCU films, they had props, didn't they? So they had different. They built a stage with a lot of it. Like the cars were actually there and things like that, and the green screen was in the background. Which, for all intents and purposes, you have to think when they shoot the new Marvel films that are coming up that they're going to do the same technique.
You'd think the volume's going to have to get into stuff. Yeah,
it's going to.
It's genius.
I think especially during like post-COVID kind of filmmaking, I think something like the volume is perfect because it means you're not going to have to travel to a location. You just and like you really can't tell the difference when you watch Mandalorian.
No,
like it looks like they're on location, whereas in Attack of the Clones, for instance, they're on a green screen. Like I would never go like, that's definitely a set or whatever. It's like that's clearly been completely computer generated, and I think that is a fault with the prequel trilogy as a whole, is that so much of it was just built as green screen. Like there's very little there in terms of
at the time they must have thought this is a game changer though, right?
This is my argument. I'd say at the time that was as good as it gets, which is I think why when I was a kid I remember looking back at it and like anything from like where CGI was really coming into films always looked great to me. But then it's only because we've been spoiled with like better CGI progressively. It very quickly becomes shit. It's like video game graphics. You sort of look at. I remember when you play like the original Tomb Raiders. I remember playing those and be like, "Oh my days, this is as good as it gets." Or like there was a trailer before it was SmackDown, Just Bring It.
Yeah.
And the intro to the game was like was an animated thing of like Triple H, Stone Cold. And I remember watching like, oh my God, this looks so real. Like if a game ever got this good, I wouldn't want to live in the real world. And then like, I remember discussing this with my brothers and rewatching that like intro cinematic thing for the game. Because the game graphics were nothing like it, but it had a really impressive intro. And I remember just telling my brother, me and my brothers were talking about it, and we YouTubed it to watch the cinematic back. And we're like, oh my God, is that how it looks? Because we all had this fixed image in our head that it was like real life. We were like, I'm not even joking. It felt like I was watching a different video. And I think it's the same with CGI. You get the best you can get at the time, which would have been probably what Attack of the Clones was hitting. They were hitting like A-star grades. But because the margin is always getting further and further away from that, we now have things like The Mandalorian or like Infinity War or like Avatar when that came out, right? That was ridiculous. And you would sit and watch Avatar and be like, oh my God, that's a real universe they've somehow made. And then, of course, when you put that next to like Attack of the Clones, you're going to think Attack of the Clones is shit because there's just no comparison with the technology. And that's the only thing why practical effects are just so much better, because they will always look exactly as they looked.
It goes two ways though, doesn't it? You said it like 11-year-old Harry Hughes, young gun that he is. He liked Attack of the Clones, and obviously you still do. But you because when you came out of cinema, and the same way when I saw Attack of the Clones, I thought, Jesus Christ, there's like I've never seen anything like that before, basically, with so much, because it's a lot more than Phantom Menace. But when they're writing it and when they're thinking of what they're going to do, at that point they're thinking, well, Yoda has been this puppet, like we said, that he's been this puppet for the original trilogy, and for he was in Phantom Menace, wasn't he, as a puppet?
They were originally, yeah. I think they redid it. So that
I think they have redone it now. I think when you watch on Disney Plus.
But then, like, tell you what, let's have him in this fight scene doing a million flippity flops and all this shit going on with a lightsaber, because we couldn't do that when he was a puppet. So they're probably thinking the fans are going to eat this up, aren't they? They're going to absolutely eat up Yoda with his. It's like when you see a puppet, like if you saw Sweep and Sutty when you were younger, like the hand puppets or whatever.
I know
the hand puppets all the time. No one else on the podcast can see my hand, but Nick and Harry can. And then
there is a hand.
They put him. They take him away. It's like, okay, Kermit the Frog's a better example. He's obviously waist down, isn't he? And then all of a sudden he sits on a chair and he's got legs. I'm like, fucking hell, he's got legs. Like, whoa! Yeah. And then all of a sudden they're like, with Yoda's like, there's only so much we can do with a puppet, but yeah, now we can do all this shit because of CGI. And it's.
I think they opened a lot of windows with CGI and as best as they could, but unfortunately, it just
Jar Jar opened a lot of windows, didn't it? Jar Jar. He was the first. Wasn't he the first character to be
completely CGI? I don't know.
Completely CGI. It was an actor doing it.
Yeah,
it was mocap.
Mocap. Yeah.
Ahmed Best.
Who played him?
Ahmed.
Did you know that without looking at something?
Yeah.
Did you? You just know you knew that?
Yeah,
that's incredible. I thought like you up with facts.
It's because a few years ago, like I feel really bad for him. He got a load of hate for playing Jar Jar, and really savage hate, and it put him on like a dark path.
Shit.
And so he like struggled for ages, and he put a post out about how he struggled with like mental health issues because of the role and stuff. And I can't remember whether it's on Disney Plus or whether it was made for another network, but he did like
Dark Side of the Jar Jar.
Yeah, no, he did like a game show, but he played a Jedi, and it was like a kids' game show where kids could go on, and it was like a bunch of like Jedi trials kind of thing. But he hosted that.
Been all over that when I was 10.
Yeah, I know. But yes, that's how I knew his name. But yeah, I think you are right. I think Jar Jar was one of the first like fully CGI'd characters.
I think I saw it on some special features for Lord of the Rings or something. I think it was Andy Serkis saying about what paved the way for him to do mocap for Gollum, and they mentioned probably that actor's name, but I didn't recall that at all. But Jar Jar was one of the first things that made that a thing, and something. Oh no, was it Andy Serkis talking about King Kong actually? Something anyway. Something Jar Jar.
Something
Jar Jar paved the way. Okay, without Jar Jar, we wouldn't have Gollum or King Kong.
I mean. Whatever your opinion of Jar Jar is, you've got to like appreciate he is a massive plot like structure for all three of the prequels. Like
he is basically the guy
really reflects on it, but he is. Yeah, it's like Jar Jar's just some random alien that they encounter, ends up being a senator who ends up passing like the law that means the Jedi are all going to get fucked. Yeah. It's like, how did this happen?
I actually mind Jar Jar as a character. Like I don't ever remember watching these things and thinking, oh god, Jar Jar, he sucks. It's the same with what's her name in? Can't remember the actress's name. All the characters' name actually in the new trilogy. The one who's with Finn.
Rose.
Rose. She got loads of shit, didn't she? Just for no fucking reason, really. There's just always one character, isn't there? Poor Jar Jar. I think he got the brunt of it.
I don't hate Jar Jar. I've got no bad feelings towards him. I just feel like it's because I've got darker as a human. I think like comic relief was funny when I was younger. As I've got older, I just get a little bit angry when people are funny, like in films. Like the funny character annoys me. But no, I think Jar Jar is harmless. Really, he's all right.
Two things I picked up on what you were saying there was, first of all, when you're talking about stuff that you remember and thinking that at the time it was really good, and then looking back on it and you go, it's really bad. I remember thinking at the time that Attack of the Clones and Revenge of the Sith did look quite bad because they came out alongside stuff like Lord of the Rings. And so Lord of the Rings had come out, I think Fellowship was 2001?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah.
And when you look at those, their CG, A, still holds up, and B, it was impressive the first time, and the fact that you still watch it, like I've just watched it in 4K over Christmas, and it looks insane. Like it still just looks amazing. Whereas when you watch like when I watched Attack of the Clones 3-4 months ago, it was what I remembered, where I was like, it's ropey.
Mhm.
And I think it's because it came out in that period of time where there were a load of films that were like all pushing towards what you can do with CG. Like Matrix was coming out at the same time, and so the first Matrix films were amazing and it did interesting things with CG, and then the next two were kind of, they existed.
Because Matrix Reloaded doesn't hold up CGI wise now, does it?
So bad.
Necessarily. But
And
the first Matrix somehow
does.
Is it?
does, yeah.
I'm sure I watched the first Matrix. First Matrix. I think I saw it at the cinema.
Yeah, we saw it at the
Did
cinema
we
like
see-
last year or the year before, 20th anniversary.
Yeah,
Yes,
when
yeah,
it was
but
the
the Matrix CGI holds up. But if you watch Matrix
I didn't
Reloaded
think it was
now,
that mega.
there are bits in it, but it's because it's simple tricks, isn't it?
Yeah.
But then you look at
true,
Matrix
yeah.
Reloaded, like when Neo's fighting all the Agent Smiths in the playground, and it doesn't look anywhere near as good as it did the first time you saw it at cinema, which is like, whoa! There's like a million. And now you watch it, you think, ugh.
Yeah.
I didn't realize it was all body double. Like they had just like a shitload of extras, by the way, in that, and they just put Hugo Weaving's face on all of them, which it makes a lot of sense. But imagine the casting call going out. We need people who are exactly this build and about 100,000 of him, please. Like
it just
anyway.
But yeah, so I think it just doesn't hold up because it came out at a time when CG was pushing forward, and so you've got loads of different takes on it, which I think it was struggling to kind of compete against what was happening at the time. It was like it was moving too fast for them to make the film, basically. So I think there's that. And then also following up with the Jar Jar point, I find it interesting that they do conclude Jar Jar's story in a book, and it's like the most miserable thing because of his decision making. Like I'm pretty sure they close off his storyline in that he's like a broke jester who's like performing in the street as like a clown, basically, with like juggling stuff. And he's basically just down because, I mean, he sort of screwed everything. So I find it interesting that they did kind of follow that up, that they were like, we'll give them a closure, but ultimately we are aware that he did make the poor decisions.
Damn.
Yeah, there you go. Yeah.
Sad times.
So
I'll tell you what, though, Attack of the Clones, just before we close it, we did not discuss the most important thing, but it did deliver us all, and that is the noise of the seismic charge, which, let's be honest, is the greatest Star Wars noise of all time.
With the Slave 1, Slave 2?
Slave 1. Slave 1. There's no Slave 2.
I was going to say, I was like...
Jesus. But yeah, the scene in the asteroid field when he drops the charges, that noise still wrecks me now. When they put it in The Mandalorian, perfection. Yeah. So credit to Attack of the Clones for that little snippet. But other than that,
poor CG.
Other than that, great plot. Poor film.
What do you think about that? I don't know where your point is. Sorry, do you want to go Nick first, Nick?
I was actually going to say, if we're all happy, we're ready to move on to the best of the three.
I thought of Revenge of the Sith as the best of the three. I enjoyed it quite a lot, actually.
So good.
It was good, wasn't it? Apart from Darth Vader going, no, at the end. Other than that, though, top-notch stuff.
Yeah, I when we watched it back, I was really excited to watch it because I think everything in it works really well. I think it's got a snappy plot. I think some of the dialogue's really good. The relationship between Obi-Wan and Anakin, I think, works perfectly. And when you get to their fight, it is heart-wrenching to kind of watch. And the score's fantastic with it. The opening's great of the film. There's just
Didn't they learn lessons from Attack of the Clones at this point? It was 3 years on, isn't it? Do you think George Lucas learned a bit from it? Or do you think he's just...
I think so.
He always had in mind?
I think so, but I think also because it's going to be the easiest of the three in the sense that it's like that storyline has been there for ages for him.
Yeah.
So it's the sense that it's like, I know how to do this because I haven't really got to fill out a lot.
Because Attack of the Clones is a lot of filler, isn't it? That's the thing, isn't it? It's trying to link Phantom Menace to get to the Revenge of the Sith. So we're stepping into the trilogy, the original trilogy.
But yeah, I love Revenge of the Sith. I think it is a really, really impressive piece of storytelling in the Star Wars saga. Hughes, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I love it also. I think it's good. It's I think the gap that was always left in the prequels is the Clone Wars, and I haven't watched it from start to finish, but I think what a lot of people wanted was that war, And I think Attack of the Clones sort of gives you the day one, and then you sort of get the end of the war in Revenge of the Sith, which is more rewarding because you get a lot more of the actual meat of it.
Yeah.
And on top of that, you get General Grievous, which I was absolutely mad for as far as like design goes. Anything cyborg is great. Star Wars cyborg, double great.
It's a good opening,
and then when
it?
it's it's strong. I love the subtle things about it as well. How he's got like a cough, and it's like a really well thought out character. I just love the design, the fact that he's basically just steadily replaced himself with robotic parts because flesh is weak and all that, and then he just collects lightsabers. Like, sure, it sounds quite basic when you put it like that, but
I think as well the cool thing that kind of storyline does is that it gives Obi-Wan this storyline where it's almost a distraction from what's happening with Anakin. It's like he's not necessarily seeing the downfall of Anakin because he's preoccupied with this thing.
Yeah,
and
I think that's good as well because it gives the. Sorry, Karen.
Oh, sorry. I was just going to say. I think that's the smart move is that the whole film is sort of catered towards the fans knowing that this film will see Anakin fall and become Darth Vader. And so the question is always like, well, how did Obi-Wan not see that coming? How did he not see it? And you realize that it's just it's in the middle of this hectic end of the Clone Wars, and ultimately when it comes to it, he's just too late. And that's the heart-wrenching, that's the emotional bit, that it's when they finally do meet up on Mustafar, and it's just they have that conversation. You're like, fuck, it's so good. Yeah, I really, really enjoy it.
All right, guys, I'm going to have to leave it there, but I will leave the podcast in your capable hands so you can talk more about the prequel trilogy and everything Star Warsy. And I'll be back on the next podcast we do. So I will see you all next time.
See you then, dude. We're going to burn this to the ground.
Oh, imagine leaving us in charge.
Listen to this. Just gonna listen to this podcast back. Shut up, Harry, and just be ruined. But fantastic. All right, bye, guys.
Bye.
So long.
Shut up. Shut up.
Who's that guy?
So that's the end of part 1. Join us next week when Harry and I discuss Revenge of the Sith and touch on the forthcoming Obi-Wan Kenobi Disney Plus series. Follow us on Twitter @ConsistentlyPod. Thanks for listening. Bye.